Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing another topic video. This week I asked you guys what is a remake that you consider to be good, better than the original. Of course, before I get into that, I am going to shamelessly plug my website. It is deepfocuslens.com. I am an artist and I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that's something you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. I'm happy to talk to you. My email is in the description box below. All right. The first one is A Star is Born. While not as stylistically accomplished as the Judy Garland version, I think Bradley Cooper's take on the familiar story is way more emotionally resonant and impactful, especially how they used Sam Elliott's character. I think I talked about this not so long ago. Maybe I didn't, I don't know. But I really didn't like the Star is Born remake. Of course, there are several remakes of A Star is Born. But yeah, I know it touched a nerve with the public. It touched a nerve with the mainstream, and I didn't feel it at all. I'm a huge fan of the Judy Garland version that you're mentioning. I think it is maybe the best one, and it's really dark. Not without its flaws, but, really devastating, and there's just a real beauty in Judy Garland and what she's able to bring out through the emotion, and I thought, James Mason, by contrast, was very interesting in that film. And then, I don't know, I think it was just something about Bradley Cooper's direction that didn't work for me. I mean, literally, I remember watching the movie for the first time, obviously very acquainted with the original material, and seeing Bradley Cooper like in the car drunk, and you see like the billboard with like the nooses in the background, and I was like, it's going to be one of those movies, isn't it? Just really on the nose dialogue, really on the nose foreshadowing, really just on the nose aesthetic overall. And I didn't care for the acting very much. You mentioned Sam Elliott. I thought his character was like nearly parody in terms of the way he was acting. He was so serious. I don't know, I was laughing a lot of the time. Even Lady Gaga, I didn't think she was good. Certainly she was good, but I didn't think she was as great as everybody was saying that she was. And I didn't think that their chemistry was particularly palpable, like everybody was saying that it was. Part of the problem, I do think, is that A Star is Born depends on someone with an extraordinary voice that's very singular, very much stands out. And when you look at the other Star is Borns, like Judy Garland, that's a once-in-a-lifetime, like once-in-a-generation type of voice. Barbara Streisand, once-in-a-generation voice. She did the Star is Born after the Garland version. Lady Gaga is a great singer, but she's more known for her performing. She's more known for like her style and, like her ability to shock or, whatever, in a very kind of commercial sense. She's known for a lot of things, but it's not like her voice is something that is so singular that you can imagine would bring in tens of people and really touch a nerve in that way. And I also found it kind of funny how meta it was in terms of, it seemed to really be criticizing Lady Gaga. Like the more that she gets into the wigs and the makeup and all that, the more they're like, this isn't you. And I'm like, how did Lady Gaga feel about that? But I don't know, I just, it's a devastating story, and I found myself, like by the end of it, not even caring. And that I find to be, really sad, but, to each his own. The Beguiled, 2017, because Sophia delved more into the feelings of the characters and the impact of the war, in an aesthetic and artistic style, and a more difficult challenge in making this film with natural lighting and without music, only the sound effects of war. As a whole, I think it's an interesting experience and a different remaking with a unique vision. Couldn't disagree more. I disagree with everything that you're saying, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have so much to say about The Beguiled. It infuriated me when I saw it, to the point where I wanted to do like an entire like film essay sort of thing talking about the differences between the remake and the original, and just how much Sophia missed the mark. What I found the most remarkable actually about how much Sophia missed the mark, one of the things, is how both films are nearly the same length, and yet the original has so much of the sexuality, the palpability, the tension, the psychedelic, it's very campy in some ways, and sometimes it is silly, it misses the mark, but yet there's so much emotion coming from it. It is very 70s, but it capitalizes on all those things, the sexuality, the primality of these characters, in a way that was just dead in the new one. I mean, it was just robotic, it was cold, it was porcelain. And what you want from this kind of movie is you want that southern kind of genteel sort of, delicacy to be there, but there's all this seething sexuality underneath it. And you got to bring that out. And I felt Sophia did not do that at all. She miscast almost every single actor here compared to the original. And I thought it was shockingly tone deaf what she did here. And there was almost no tension. And And this story has so much tension. But the thing that pissed me off the most, I mean, and this is the thing that really got to me, was that, you know, she got rid of the slave character. She got rid of the black character. And I think that character is so important. I think she kind of bridges the gap between the Clint Eastwood character and the other women in a way that's very interesting. She brings out all these shades. She was one of my favorite characters. And of course, there's an incest plot line there. All this stuff is very important, very integral to the whole meaning of the book, the whole meaning of the idea behind the story. Sophia discards it. And I thought, this is really perplexing, why you would leave out such important aspects of a story. And her response to it, I found to just be shocking. I mean, this is on the Mark Maron's podcast, so you can find it on YouTube, but he asks her why she did that. And she basically just said, I didn't want to offend anyone. You know, like all that stuff, you know, it's a little too touchy. And I'm like, wow, so you're not going to tackle hard subjects because you're afraid of the response. And that is just very typical of this time. And I don't know, it's very insulting to me when it comes to the source material. David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is much better than the original. It added a lot more nuance to the characters. Lisbeth's motivation was more convincing than in the original, and it was also by far technically superior to the original in every way as well. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying in terms of the film itself. Absolutely. It's David Fincher. You know, the original film, like, what was it? It was like the Swedish version. It was very, like, kind of generic direction, you know, nothing particularly special about it. David Fincher, of course, is fantastic. He's one of the great Hollywood directors that we have. And yes, he can allow for all those nuances, the style and the detail to come through. I don't think this is one of his best movies, really, at all. In fact, I think it's one of his weaker ones. But, you know, still, the style is there and it's very strong. It creates a world much better than that original film. However, I have to say, I do think that the original Lisbeth is better than the Rooney Mara version. I really like, is it Noomi Rapace? I never know how to say her name. I thought she was fantastic and more believable. There was a darkness and an edge to her and a real strength. Like, she was physically tough in a way that felt intimidating, felt butch. It felt all these things, and you slowly get to see her soften a little bit. Whereas Rooney Mara, by contrast, is more delicate. She's very skinny and kind of more alien-like, which is interesting, but I don't buy that she has that roughness to her in the way that Noomi had. I really thought she did a fantastic job as the character. And when I saw the Fincher version, I was unfortunately let down by the main performance. So I think, you know, both have their thing. It just goes to show how much an actor can elevate a film that's not so great, that's kind of mediocre. But yes, I cannot disagree with you. Certainly the Fincher one is better. I know you just did the review for it, but De Palma's Scarface, 1983, the original 32 one has its charm and it's really good, but Scarface 83 outshines the original to the point where a lot of non-cinephiles don't even know there's an original. From the more fleshed out characters and the best friend and wife character, the exotic Miami setting, and the iconic 80s music and fashion, plus the ending shootout is one of cinema's greatest scenes. Yes, I did just review the film, and I talked a lot about the difference between the two films, the original film and the De Palma version. So you can go there if you want more in depth. But yeah, you know, I was really surprised how much, I mean, I have seen both, obviously, but I hadn't seen the original film in many years. So returning to it for that review was very interesting. I was quite surprised by how much I liked it. And I found myself, you know, there are things I love. I mean, I love the De Palma version. It's fabulous. But also I do think stylistically, even though it's a commentary on it, I don't think it delves quite deeply enough in the ways I know De Palma is capable of. And I think at times people fetishize it, romanticize it. And I don't think that's necessarily the point of what De Palma was doing. Whereas when you watch the original film, there's something about the humor, there's something about kind of the believability of the characters, there's something about kind of really marinating in that Italian traditional feel and really getting to know the characters that makes the contrast of the violence very interesting. And also the humor is just really interesting. I think it's better overall. And it's so interesting because it's a lot shorter. But I do think, you know, you were talking about like the female characters, I much prefer the sister in the original. I mean, this girl is like sexually starved. She's dangerous. There's something about her that feels almost like you can't control her. And I find that just very interesting. And I find the dynamic between her and the brother more interesting. I even like, you know, the love interest for Tony better in this film. Yes, I understand that The Michelle Pfeiffer version is more an archetype, more kind of a noir symbol, less of a character, and it works. But I just like, it feels more believable here. It feels more like these people would actually, be a couple. And there's something kind of cool, and there's something kind of removed, but also very interesting and charming and likable about the original version. But yeah, I just think there's something about the way they're able to implement all of those aspects. Of course, it is a pre-code movie, and the humor of it that I don't think somebody like De Palma in his version quite understood. He didn't quite understand the subtext in the same ways, but to each his own, again. I'll go to bat for Suspiria 2018. While I appreciate the aesthetic of the 1977 original, I find the remake far more compelling and much more interesting as horror. It trades a fairy tale sensibility for grim Cold War Berlin, bringing what was a vague backdrop to the forefront to devastating effect. The dance that played such a minor role in the original is front and center and such an interesting part of the mythos in that it is the way the witches cast spells, which itself is such a cool choice. It also has this overwhelming sense of crushing dread, which I hadn't felt in a horror movie since probably when I saw The Shining as a kid. It's a frigid movie with a haunting atmosphere that I found gripping and unsettling, unlike many movies. You make a good argument for why you like it, but I don't agree at all. I don't agree at all. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the problem is you're talking about how it affected you, and that's great for you. All the things you're mentioning did not affect me at all. It just was completely dull, monotonous, flat on the page, so to speak. Part of the problem is I don't like Luca Guadagnino. I don't think he's a great director. I think he's more somebody who's good with aesthetic, not so much at bringing all that together in an emotional way, in an impactful way. For me, what was so important about this film, if they were going to focus more on the body horror, is really getting into the flesh, really getting into the bones and the blood and all of that, and I never felt any of that. I did in the dance sequences at certain points, more in the rehearsals, but I think a lot of the sequences where things are supposed to really tear and rip and it's supposed to be kind of more horrifying, I didn't feel it at all. And I think the problem here, I do like that they tried to go for a completely different style than the Argento version. Absolutely. And I do like that they tried to flesh out more of the feminine energy and the darkness of that, because that's something I felt was lacking in the original. Something I wish we had seen more is more of the symbolism, the artistry, kind of bringing out that feminine energy and kind of the contrast of that darkness. So I appreciated that they went for it here. I just don't think it was well executed. Even in the dance sequences, even though I really like the choreography and I'm really, it's all stuff that I'm into, I didn't like the way it was photographed. Everything just feels real kind of just unfocused. I do love that dance played a bigger role. I do like that they went more kind of the modern dance rather than ballet. All of that's very interesting, but again, just not really executed in the way that I wished. You talk about it being haunting, atmosphere-wise, and again, all of that I felt removed from, and I think there is a danger of kind of weighing things down too much with symbolism and concepts and kind of drawing these characters out, bringing out all this stuff. I think it gets weighted down by all of that. I didn't feel the crushing dread. I felt a lot of the more kind of experimental sequences, especially towards the end, felt very kind of obvious, very kind of art house typical. I felt no sense of horror at all in the entire film, to the point where I was actually wondering, is this supposed to be horror? And for me, say what you will about the original, but it has something very bold about it. And there is just an atmosphere and a build of tension and an idea of, you feel like a little girl going into a haunted house. And that is captivating to me. And, just the colors of everything are really beautiful. The soundtrack is amazing. Whereas, in the Tom York version just felt really kind of monotonous and like it brought no color to anything. There's a wildness and a bizarre sort of feeling to the original film, even though I wish it were more fleshed out. That is just, to me, more interesting. I think sometimes less is more is better. And I think, again, that's a problem more modern filmmakers face is having too much information and not knowing how to sort it all through. I know I'm in the minority about that, but that's the beauty of opinions. But anyway, that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to give a shout out to my patrons. As always, you guys are lovely. And if you are interested in becoming a patron, the link to support that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.